Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast. I'm your host, Nat, and today I am delighted to be with Dr. Mary. And Dr. Mary is going to introduce herself to me and you, the listeners, to let us know what she has to offer and who she is.
Well, first and foremost, Nat, I want to say thank you. Thank you for holding the space for us today. That's so important in today's community and our environment. I just want to say thank you for all that you do to support others. And you and I are very similar. Our primary, even though we have different modalities, I am a chiropractor and a medical intuitive, but our intention as we hold space for others is very similar. And that is to help us to help others auto-regulate their central nervous system so that they can tap into more of their parasympathetic autonomic nervous system so that they can be in a state of receptivity when it comes to healing and transformation. So I applaud you and all of your efforts because that is so spot on. My belief system is that for sustainable and lasting healing transformation, your spirit gets to be fully embodied in his or her home. So that requires safety, that requires trust, that requires spaciousness.
Yeah. I know when I started Lift Oneself, and even a little bit before that, when I would talk about the nervous system, people would be like, what are you talking about? And then some of my friends were like, you're not going to be able to brand it that way. Like, people have no idea what you're talking about, like mainstream. And I'm like, I want to normalize the conversation because everybody has a nervous system. They're driving in a vehicle and on autopilot, and they don't even realize that they can access a lot of its empowerment and its energy. Yet you have to engage with it and not be, in the patterns. But as humans, we are in patterns. We are in the automatic part of things. Yet we can interrupt that. It just takes a lot of practice, and it takes the willingness to, interrupt those patterns. So before we get into this deep dive, I would ask, would you join me in a mindful moment so that we can ground and open our hearts?
Absolutely. This is how I start all of my podcast as well. So you have my full attention.
Thank you. And as you always hear, listeners, safety first. When I ask Mary and myself to close, Dr. Mary and myself to close our eyes, please don't, because most of you guys are watching or listening to this while you're driving. So safety first. Yet you're able to listen to the other prompts. So get comfortable in your seating. And if it's safe to do so, please gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to bring the awareness to watching its rhythm, allowing it to guide you into your body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up, and that's okay. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop deeper into your body. There may be some thoughts or to-do lists that have popped up in your mind, and that's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping deeper into your body, allowing yourself to just be. Again, more thoughts may have popped up. Just bring your awareness back to your breath, beginning again, creating even more space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping deeper into your body, allowing yourself to just be in the breath. Now, at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while still staying with your breath. How's your heart doing?
Filled with gratitude. And yours?
It's in delight, it's in curiosity. It has a little bit of fear because there's a lot of things going on right now in my personal life that has some uncertainty and unknown. So it's, holding space for it all and still having the courage to show up with life, which, when we have a lot of fear or uncertainty, the default of the nervous system is shut down or run away. And it's like, no, we can be in this, we can feel it all. And as I said, what before we recorded, you asked the services that I provide, and it's holding a safe space to feel. And for me to do that, that means I actually have to do it for myself. It's not just theory and philosophy, it's actually lived experience so that when I hold that safe space for others, they can feel the palpable relatability. So thank you for the question and asking me, and
Yeah.
inviting into the podcast.
Yeah, Nat, there's so much wisdom in what you're sharing. I want to circle back to how relatable your approach is to something that's very parallel to how I see the central nervous system. And that is, you talked about the uncertainty and the unknown in my world that shows up in the space of the first chakra, located deep within the pelvis, where we connect into, are we safe? Are we able to survive? The basic needs, the primal needs that need to be met on a daily basis. And it is uncomfortable to sit in that state of uncertainty because over time, that requires that we truly trust. We trust in something that's much bigger and greater than ourselves, outside of ourselves, and to know that we will always be cared for, will always be loved, will be nurtured, will be supported, regardless what the outcome of our daily activities are. And so in my world, and I think in yours, you led us through the meditation, to really connect with a slower, more rhythmic, more grounded presence as we connect into the frequency of Mother Earth. And that again is the primary theme around the first chakra. So we're holding space for the same thing. And so we just have different words and how we articulate what it is that we're holding space for. And, I'm gonna respectfully kind of go against some of the friends that may have been naysayers and saying that your community doesn't necessarily know central nervous system. And I think that I think that everybody is aware, conscious or unconscious, as to how they run their system. There's a somatic intelligence and innate intelligence within all of us that governs, that auto-regulates on, moment to moment basis. So I do believe on some level we all are connected.
We are. We are. The journey that I've gone through in the past almost 11 years when I had the lesions in my brainstem and in my cerebellum gave me a front seat to the nervous system and, feeling the cortisol dropping in and the adrenaline dropping in. And thankfully, when I learned meditation, I took it to the living room and the twins were 5. So when they were fighting or the TV was loud and, my nervous system wanted to interrupt or interfere or stop something, it was like, come back here, come back here. You don't have to react to the thing that is disrupting you and making you uncomfortable. It's really rewiring that comfort into discomfort and that discomfort into comfort and letting that curiosity be untethered. to let the story evolve a little bit more than what the mind wants to think it knows what's going to happen or predict things rather than let, life present itself in front of you and better understand, the suppression of emotions. Many of us don't even know how to feel our authentic emotions. We think our feelings, we don't really embody the feelings and really feel it. We can talk about it and circle around it. And then when I invite people, I'm like, you're not feeling. You're telling me all the labels, yet drop in and feel so it's in your body. It's not stuck in the intellectual aspect, which is needed, because we walk in a world that can be very harmful to vulnerability and emotions. So you have to create this protection field, yet that protection field isn't supposed to be held against yourself. You're supposed to
Mhm.
be there for yourself and create that safety in your body. Yet that's its own journey to walk into. I want to ask you, what brought you into chiropractor?
Wow. Well, I'm so connected with the message that you were just sharing. There's so much wisdom in there. I wanted to unpack it all
You
to
can.
kind of, yeah, and I'll answer that question in a moment. But as I'm listening to you, it is counterintuitive for almost all of us present here today to lean into bodily discomfort. We're wired to want to lean away from it. We'll do anything to escape the bodily discomfort. And the moment that somebody says, hey, 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 what's your body telling you? Where do you feel it in your body? And know that even though there can be a moment of fear, apprehension, anxiety about listening to that somatic wisdom, you can lean in. There's a way, and you present it, even in the tone of your voice and the way that you approach the conversation. You can lean into that area of discomfort. And then just the opposite can happen. You can lean away from it and find an area of spaciousness within the somatic awareness. And then you can kind of pendular swing back into the area. You don't, because we innately have fear about feeling pain, you don't have to go there and think that you're going to be stuck. You can go in and out and gently ask your body, what is it that you're trying to share with me? What is the message? What are we unpacking somatically? And that feeling of the emotions is so powerful, probably more powerful than the cognitive understanding of whatever emotions that you're looking to process. And neurologically, neurologically, we have a nerve, the vagus nerve, everybody thinks that the brain is the main controller and it sends the signals down through the central nervous system and out to the body. And that's true.
Okay.
However, there are nerves, such as the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, that has 80% of the information is coming from the body, from the tissues of the body where we store our emotions. And then that information comes in hormonally through the endocrine system and can come through the energetic system and then back into the central nervous system or the circulatory system. And then up to the brain it goes, and it can create a whole new set of neuropeptides, and that it can create the spaciousness for new programming. So when you say, can we lean away from our conditioned responses? I'm here to say, absolutely we can. Neurologically, scientifically, that's all proven. So now that I got that off my chest, um, so let's see. Okay. How did I decide that I wanted to be a chiropractor? I'm not going to elaborate too much of the story, but I will share with you a very important piece. An important piece is that I was born hearing impaired. So I have 50% of the normal hearing capacity, and I went undiagnosed until the age of 3. So for those first 3 years, I lived in what I lovingly refer to as that space between the spiritual dimension and the space between the physical dimension. So I was kind of like in no man's land. I knew that my mother was communicating to me. I knew that there was love in her heart, but I didn't understand the words. I couldn't hear the words. So what I developed very early on was above and beyond the traditional five senses. I learned how to sense and feel. Sense
Mhm.
and feel other people's emotion, sense and feel what's happening in my environment before I could put context to it, like what's happening in my environment. Why do I feel this way? And obviously, at the age of 3, I really didn't have anybody teaching me this, but it was my mode of survival. I knew that I needed to assimilate information in order to survive. So, as you can imagine, we talk about the first chakra and we talk about fear and the unknown. I know that, my body, I now know at the age of 55 what, my 3-year-old was experiencing, and like, wow, am I safe? What's happening? Do I need to be protected? What should my defenses be? And so to make a long story short, um, that was a gift. That was a big gift. And not only was I sensing and feeling, I literally was developing my psychometry. So I was developing the ability to feel energy through the palms of my hands. Okay. So I literally would touch things, I would touch fabrics, I would touch people to get as much information as I could about my environment. So when you say, how did I know I wanted to grow up and be a chiropractor? I knew at the age of 3 that I was destined, my purpose, like there was no question that I needed to have my hands on human bodies. I needed to be touching.
Mhm.
So academically, I was mainstreamed, even though I was hearing impaired, I was mainstreamed. And just due to the perfectionistic nature of my academic parents and my own internal drive, I excelled. So then I went through undergraduate school and got my degree in chemistry and zoology. And then 3 days after I graduated from undergraduate school, I was in chiropractic school. And then all of a sudden, I was surrounded by a group of people who were saying, oh yeah, let's develop the senses of our hands. Oh yeah, hey, everybody, let's just honor the fact that we as humans can heal ourselves. We can heal from above, down, inside, and out. All we have to do in the premise from a chiropractic standpoint was to assist and regulate the central nervous system. Remove any interferences from the communication from the brain to the body and the body to the brain. Wow. I was at home, right? I was simply at home. So that's kind of the short answer to your question. I knew at a young age, I did what I needed to do in order to get there, and I am still practicing. I have 2 half days or 3 half days in which I put my hands on physical bodies. But in today, I can no longer separate the physical from the energetic. So I literally am running information, intuiting information at all times, especially when I have my hand on patients. And then, the other portions of the time, I'm working remotely, holding space as a medical intuitive, and then also holding space for my podcast called Energy Medicine.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love, your story, what was, signaling out to me, and where some listeners may, understand is you weren't severed from your intuition. Like the nervous system, and like we're feeling bodies that think. So in a world that a lot of times when we were young and there would be verbiage, we would feel that there was something wrong in the space. It could have been angry or a disagreement, yet we were told everything's okay. So then as a child, you start disconnecting with that feeling aspect of reading the energy and emotions and think, well, I must not know what I'm reading because they're saying everything's fine. And then that becomes this disconnection also. And later on, people recognize, oh, it's to come back into that, to trust that aspect of the nervous system that reads the energies and emotions in a world that tells you emotions are garbage or pain is useless and all this. It's like, this is part of being human. This is part of the body being able to communicate what the environment is. What a fascinating way to come into this world and not have the interference of language per se, and be able to develop and really fine tune that aspect for yourself.
Hmm. Nat, I want to I knew intuitively when we connected this morning that this was going to be a juicy conversation. So I just want to applaud you in that the awareness that you're bringing and that we are conditioned to not trust our intuition. And your example of the environment, right? Parents are always gonna they're gonna fib. They're gonna lie. They're gonna be like, "Oh, honey, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay." However, I'm gonna share that as a small person, I lived in a household in which my father was somewhat volatile. He was a functional alcoholic. He was always a great provider and had wonderful qualities, but literally I knew intuitively, right, that things were not right when I felt the energetic shift of my mother and felt the energetic shift of my sister when he came in the front door. I couldn't hear him, but I was in tune enough to read everybody else and to feel everybody else. If they're shutting down or if they're becoming ungrounded or anxious or dysregulated, then that's what I was feeling. So the importance, I believe, when you lean into intuition is to trust it. And that's something that you so rightfully said that we are conditioned. The majority of us are conditioned. And I will say that clairsentience is most often developed within people who do have they are are raised in an abusive household in some way, or there's drug abuse or verbal abuse or you name it, because they know within the trillions of the cells within them that there is something to be on defense with and some element of alarm. So when you say the society or the parents are conditioning us to not honor the discordance that we know to be true, I think that is a tremendous disservice.
Mhm. It's where a lot of disease and illness is, because you're always in conflict of pushing down and suppressing this part that's trying to give you information, yet you have separated yourself from self, separated yourself from the body because it's not trusting it, because you haven't been validated in the experience or validated yourself that, you know what I'm feeling is okay, even if the other people are not willing to be honest, which we don't, the emotional intelligence, we're really not there yet. We're not there. Like, look at how many times when somebody cries, how many people apologize for sharing tears. And that should show us how immature we are with holding space with emotions, that we feel that when we show a vulnerability, that we have to apologize for it because we feel that it's an inconvenience or a Debbie Downer or whatever narrative there may be. Yet it's us as a society that we have to look at, how are we creating these safe spaces? We're talking about we want change. Well, we have to demonstrate that. That's why I do those mindful moments in the podcast right at the beginning, because everybody's telling people meditate. Yet, when are we inviting it into our living spaces so that we can actually benefit from regulating our nervous systems and being accountable for our own energy? Like, when you aren't aware, I love these things, when you aren't aware of your emotional state and you're not feeling, that thing hijacks your behavior and it projects a lot of things without you, consciously knowing. Yet the more that you do your inner work and you create safety in your body, you are one with your emotions and you understand not to identify with your emotions and you let them pass through. But you also know that you have a choice of, do not let it hijack your behavior. Yet when it does, it's having radical compassion with yourself to understand, Patterns are really difficult to break in humans, and life is going to be messy. Yet have the accountability that you will hold yourself in all of it, and you're no longer going to splinter anymore. You're going to be whole with a W, no matter how messy that is, which can be really uncomfortable. Like you said, if people have lived in a very volatile environment, they disassociated from their body. They needed to protect themselves. And the journey to come back in is gut-wrenchingly difficult for them. And that's why I call it warrior work. Because how are you going to tell me to go and feel this pain that I've pushed down so much and that there'll be something good out of it? And the reason why I have the butterfly in Lift Oneself is not because everybody wants to be, radiant and beautiful. It's to remind you the journey to get to the butterfly, the caterpillar had to eat itself in the cocoon. It had to turn into goo. And do you think at that process that it's thinking anything good is going to come from that?
I love that. I'm chuckling because, eating goo and eating yourself does not sound like a pleasant situation at all, at all. And you talk about whole with a capital W. I'm going to talk about something that you mentioned and just kind of glossed over, and that's trust. Trust with a capital Trust. Trust in all that is, I think is the root of coming back into when you talk about fragmenting the spirit, literally leaving the body. And from what I see from a medical intuitive is that the spirit comes in and out of the space of the top of the head, the seventh chakra. So if there's pain and discordance within the physical body, your spirit goes up and out. And so when we talk about that embodiment process where you're inviting your spirit to come home, right, within the human body, that process of guiding your spirit back, as you mentioned, is incredibly challenging because they're exploring space that they may have never explored. And so the analogy that I use, Nat, and I think it's applicable now because, when I talk about embodiment, I use the analogy and say, okay, Nat, if I were to come to your home tonight, you probably would be pretty excited to see me. You probably would pick up a little bit. You may even wipe down a few counters. You might even pick up some laundry that's hanging around in your bedroom. And then when I show up, you're going to greet me with a beautiful smile and you're going to say, "Hey, Dr. Mary, you hang your coat and purse over here. And oh, welcome, welcome. Please let me show you into where we're going to sit down. Can I get you a glass of water? Can I get you tea?" And then you would say, "Come with me into the kitchen." And then you would show me, where the heart of the home is. You would show me, you would probably say, "Do you want ice in your water? Do you want lemon in your tea?" You'd be asking me all of these things and showing me where I can serve myself. And you would be like, "Oh, you have to use the restroom? Let me show you where our guest bathroom is. It's down the hall and to the left. And there's some additional towels underneath the sink if you need them." So that kind of an invitation, when you're inviting your spirit to come back into its human home, you get to show it all the pieces and parts, all the way down to the space between the toes, all the way down to the bottom of the foot, into the ankle. And oh, that space, that area of darkness or that area of tightness and constriction in your low back, you need to show them that too. Or the discomfort that you might experience in your heart space that you want to protect. Yeah, they kind of need to know where that is as well. And so, from a state of radical compassion, the exploration then becomes like this awareness of, wow, what a beautiful space this is.
The beautiful explanation of it, of really understanding, where I tell people and where I've had to actually use it with myself that in those dark moments that I'm only seeing darkness, it's to remind myself I am the light. I just have forgotten to turn on that light and be connected into spirit, soul, life essence, whatever word, because people get so sticky with the words and it has to be, and it's like we're all saying the same thing. It just sounds a little differently. And when we're, working through that union. Another, like I said, the intention of the podcast was to remove stigma around mental health. It was also to bring the spirituality and the humanness, because there's a lot of spiritual bypassing or a lot of mindset bypassing. And then people, yeah, they get some great excelling experiences, but later on down the line, something snaps and it's like, oh, I thought I got rid of, and it's like, there is no getting rid of, it's integrating. And it's better understanding and not separating and, like I said, fragmenting. And I wanted to blend the two, and how you're speaking, you're blending both also. What is one thing that you have seen throughout this journey that people constantly do with themselves that block the interaction of spirit and mind and body?
Mm. The number one emotion behind that block is fear. Okay, we've been talking about it all day, and we're talking about this in our time together that we're sharing, and that really shows up again in the pelvis, connecting in meeting and greeting the frequency of Mother Earth, that slow, rhythmic, nutrient-dense, organic brown soil where we come from. So when you talk about people spiritually bypassing, I see it all the time. And I typically, in that situation, I see a split between the first chakra in the pelvis and the seventh chakra on top of the head. And so they bypass the lower three chakras and go up above the heart into the domain of the spiritual essence. And I don't care, just like you, I don't care what word we're using. I happen to use spirit, essence. You'll hear me talk about original essence. And when I hold space to come fully down, again, just like you're holding space, I hold space for the lower three chakras, because that's where the good meat of the earth kind of uh that's where the good stuff is, in my opinion. So that's where I want to bring people home to the human home. Um, your question was about what do I commonly see? That I see that a lot in people. And so to create a safe environment for oneself, I think is most imperative, because when you can experience safety for yourself, then perhaps you can create safety for others. And then that's more honoring when you think about being in a state of compassion opposed to being a state of empathy, which are two totally different things.
Yeah. It's compassion, the simple term, if you can use that. It's like, just like me, you're not aware of something. So let me hold the space for you to maybe possibly be willing to see your reflection and to see the greatness of yourself and not the harm that you may be, doing internally. And that's why the radical compassion for myself that I always have to use is, just because I know something, it doesn't always mean that it's fully embodied. And that is the work that I'm doing. And unfortunately, in the world, when people are like, you should know better, it's like, yeah, yet to access it in my behavior when there's been so much programming or conditioning, or me separating from feeling the fullness of myself and feeling the authentic emotions. It's warrior work to do. So I'm going to make mistakes. Even though some will hold me on a certain pedestal, I continuously tell them, knock that thing off. Please knock that thing off. Because and then that's where the work comes even more profound with the clients and the people that I work with, because they see, oh, you're actually doing this work. There is
Mhm.
no like sense of arrival. And I'm like, no, like the mastery, if people say mastery, it's just to always remember, use the practice and the tools so that you don't fall asleep to certain things, or, not feel certain things, that you are present in the moment, and you're in your body using that vehicle to read the world, and listen to the call. Like, God is always calling, yet many of us don't answer the call. There's very few that answer the call. And when we do answer the call, it can feel a little disruptive, because it's like you're seeing things that other people aren't seeing. And it's like, how are you not seeing this stuff? Like, one of my twins at the age of 5 was going to school and telling them that Santa didn't exist, and that He sees you when you're sleeping and when you're awake is a riddle for parents to get you to behave to get the presents. So trying to say that truth in school, the teachers were like, okay, that's your belief, and I understand that, yet you're making the other children uncomfortable by saying this. So you're going to have to stop saying your truth.
Mm, mm.
And I supported him in that and being, no, this is your truth and it's okay. Just recognize what you're seeing in the adults and the other people. They just aren't willing to come out of their storyline. Yet it's difficult as a child because he understood too, like children don't have any power. Like I don't have like I can say certain things, yet I can get punished. There's consequences and everything else. Yet I supported that. And I got a lot of naysayers of how are you not getting presents? How are you not celebrating Santa? How are you not keeping with the tradition? It's like, but it's a lie. And why would I still continue to put a lie when there's other miracles in life that we can tap into? Like this body, two liquids, two energetic things came together, created a pancreas, lungs, heart. We go to sleep and we know when to wake up. We know when to urinate. We like that in itself isn't a miracle that we can create stories around, that we have to create these fabrications of human conditioning and behavior.
The human body never, ever, ever, ever ceases to amaze me. And I have been studying all facets. I mean, down to the quantum biology, quantum neurology. And I get to that depth and I'm like, oh, wow, how magnificent. Look at this design. Look at this design. And since we can see down at a cellular level that there is an electric, there is a magnetic, there's a photonic, emission, photonic just means a light emission down to the cells of the body. You talk about, you started me on this, so let me just wrap this thought up here. You talk about areas of darkness within the body that innately have that light. And it's within your God-given right to turn that light back on. So the way that another analogy, just to simplify this concept, is that if you're taking a bird's eye aerial view of New York City, right? We know that New York City has tons of various different pockets and neighborhoods, and we could be however many feet above the city and look down and we can see a neighborhood that has gone dark. It's gone dark because it's not getting the electricity. But guess what? There's a switch. There's a switch somewhere that somebody can just flip it back on, and then the light returns back into that neighborhood. The same is true for our physical bodies. Because we are electric, because we are magnetic, we can find that switch to emanate that photonic emission and turn that light back on. The healing does come from within. And that's our right. That's our choice. That is our ability. That is our intention that we can align to. It's just the human body is so beautiful.
It
It
is.
is miraculous.
It is. I know many listeners are like, okay, where do I find Dr. Mary now? Because she's speaking, and for listeners, as you talked about the vagus nerves, the limbic system also signals. And when you're getting, your hair standing up, or you got a chill, or there's a vibration going through the goosebumps, that's your limbic signaling. There was something in this dialogue that has more depth of information for you. So, Dr. Mary, can you let the listeners know where they can find you and what you offer as services?
I really appreciate you asking, sincerely. Listeners, I realize that some of you may be listening and you may be turned on, like fascinated by some of the concepts. And then some of you may actually be questioning what it is that I am communicating, and that's okay. So, what I offer on my website, you can find me at www.drmarysanders.com and DRMARYSANDERS.com. And on my website, there's four things I want to guide you to. Number one, there is a discovery call. Discovery call is just that. It's a complimentary way for you to connect with me to connect with you, find out if we're going to be if there's a potential collaboration, to find out intuitively if it's a good match. So that's always available on the website. The second thing that's available on the website is that I have put together three short meditations of 10 minutes in each length. And the intention of these three meditations, one, get you connected to the juiciness of Mother Earth. Number two, to separate and mutually identify self versus others. And third, to bring you into present time to lean away from anxiety and depression. So those meditations are available to you. And then you may have heard, just as Nat has a passion for connecting into the body, I share that same passion. So every month I hold space for collective group healing, and that is specifically designed to bring you into your somatic intelligence and your somatic awareness. So those are various different things that I offer. And then if you are inclined to learn more about integrative approaches to health and well-being and quantum biology and quantum neurology and things like that, then follow me on the podcast, Energy Medicine. We talk about all things that align the mind, body, and spirit. It's just juicy conversation after juicy conversation. So those are some offerings, I guess. Those are some opportunities, if you wish.
Wow. Um, Thank you. Thank you for what you bring into the world. And thank you for, holding space for people to connect within, to no longer be searching on the outside, that they're like, wait, I have the ability within myself. I just need some guidance of how do I access this? How do I create safety back into my body? And like you said, capital TRUST, how do I trust myself? How do I trust my body? And, that can be challenging when you have illnesses and pain. And I can speak on it because I lived it. Like I said, I had lesions in my brainstem, cerebellum, and there was swelling in my meninges. So I was in really debilitating pain. Yet I had to navigate through that and trust my body and ask my body what it needed. And that, presented a lifestyle change in the way I related to myself with the survival instinct of my nervous system and maturing that aspect out so that I could be in my parasympathetic. And I know some listeners are like, these are big words. Yet inform yourself about these big words because you're actually, as Dr. Mary has said, you're already navigating in this. You just haven't fully, rather than being in a Tesla where it's automatically driving or being in an automatic car where it's just gas and pedal, it's like we want to invite you into stick shifting and using the stick shift to manually learn how this engine works and not just be dependent on let it do whatever it wants to do, because sometimes it can run amok if there's too much fear and anxiety because of psychological belief systems and narratives that have been created in the conditioning. So I want to thank you so much for gracing us with the most valuable thing you could give to anybody, which is your time. So thank you for offering your time, your energy, your space to be here with myself. I have been fully blessed with this interaction, and as the universe would have it, it always shows up at the right time. It's just always knowing how to surrender and open up and allow yourself to receive while giving also. I want to ask, is there anything in your heart that you would like to leave the listeners to empower them?
Yeah, yeah. Your conversation just landed. So my favorite mantra is relax, open, allow. And those are the three words, Nat, you just said. So back at you, sister.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everything and the courage it has taken to show up in life and to be your confident, brilliant, ecstatic self. So thank you for infecting us with that energy, because it reminds us exactly where we need to be. And that means to return back home within the body so that we can feel the fullness and the essence of life. So please remember to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. Much gratitude to you and to the listeners.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit, it's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.